This presentation is based on the book Copyright Clarity, written by Renee Hobbs. In her book, Ms. Hobbs attacks the myths and misinformation regarding the use of copyrighted material in education. As you will learn, the real purpose of copyright law is to promote the spread of knowledge and innovation. Some teachers take the approach that all educational and non-commercial use of copyrighted material is legal. They wrongly expand the concept of fair use so it includes all nonprofit applications. They fail to educate themselves about the reality that it is illegal to use copyrighted material in certain instances. Other teachers believe they can only use copyrighted materials in face-to-face educational settings. They don't share classroom creations with broader audiences. The problem with this approach is that it limits the spread of new and innovative instructional practices at a time when they are desperately needed. Lastly, there are those educators who voluntarily place excessive restrictions upon their use of copyrighted material in the classroom. They are hyper-compliant. They are missing out on innovative ways to use available materials for quality teaching and learning. Ms. Hobbs makes the distinction between plagiarism and copyright. Plagiarism is an ethical problem. It is when you use someone else's work without proper citation. Copyright is a legal problem that is handled by the courts. For example, you can plagiarize from Shakespeare, but you'll never have a copyright problem. The idea of copyright is not new. Our founding fathers had the foresight to create provisions for the protection and the usage of intellectual material. Section 1, Article 8 of the U.S. Constitution gives government the right to establish a copyright system to promote the progress of science and useful arts. In 1976, Congress passed a copyright law that introduced the concept of fair use. Section 107 states, "The fair use of a copyrighted work is not an infringement of copyright." The doctrine includes 4 deliberately broad and expansive factors to prevent copyright ownership from becoming a form of private censorship. The 4 factors include the purpose and character of the use, the nature of the work, the amount of the work used, and the effect of the use upon the potential market for the copyrighted work. In addition, the doctrine protects those who use copyrighted work for purposes such as criticism, comment, news, reporting, teaching, scholarship, or research. This means that it is okay to reproduce a copyrighted work for purposes of parody or criticism, even if the use hampers the sale of the original. Section 110 of the Copyright Act allows educators to use lawfully made copies in places devoted to instruction for educational purposes. Face-to-face instruction is specifically protected, but is not the only way copyrighted material can be used. Fair use can be used for other situations. Everyone has the right to make a determination of fair use based on the law. Shepard Fairey created the iconic Barack Obama Hope poster. He digitally manipulated a photograph taken by the Associated Press. Such repurposing of copyrighted materials for new creations is called transformative use. It is ultimately up to a judge to decide if a work is transformative. The judge determines if the unlicensed use transforms the material from its original purpose into something entirely new. The quantity of the material taken is also a consideration in determining copyright infringement. In 2003, Dorling Kindersley published a book on rock history. In it, he used thumbnail images of copyrighted rock posters. The owners of the images sued, but a judge determined that the use of the images was transformative in nature and could be used under fair use. Once you legally acquire a copy of creative work, it is yours to use and share. Educators who purchase books with reproducibles are free to copy the resources for their classes year after year. However, it is unlawful to create copies to share with other educators. This type of use robs the owner of legitimate sales. The law protects individuals who act reasonably and in good faith in nonprofit organizations. If such an individual makes a fair use determination that is reasonable and rational, they are unlikely to be targeted with a lawsuit. Creative Commons is an alternative licensing scheme that encourages a culture of sharing. Work is placed in the public domain for free usage under the creator's guidelines. Although this is beneficial, users should never limit themselves to what is available through Creative Commons. Over the past 35 years, there have been various guidelines and interpretations of what constitutes fair use. Widely distributed educational use charts are full of restrictions that are not the law. These represent the negotiated agreements between publishers and some educational groups. The following are myths. It is allowable to use 10% of copyrighted music, or up to 1,000 words of an essay, or that you can use up to 5 images from a single photographer. The information stated on the charts sounds legal and factual, but they are not the law. In fact, Congress clearly stated that these documents would not replace the fair use doctrine. Information found on the web may be biased against free use. For example, the animated video at the Copyright Clearance Center urges users to get permission and pay licensing fees for any copyrighted material. This advice benefits copyright clearance and its customers. Copyright owners advocate for the strictest possible interpretation of the fair use doctrine. Ms. Hobbs urges her readers to make use of the legal rights granted to them through the Copyright Act. When we exercise our rights, they become stronger and everyone benefits. Goodbye and thanks for listening.